Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. Today I have a special guest, Rashida Strober, the world's first dark-skinned activist. She's the author of 5 books. Thank you for agreeing to join me for this Google Hangout. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you inviting me here. I'm really excited. I was telling everybody, my Facebook followers, about the interview, so I'm real happy to be here. Thank you.
All right, so we'll get started. So the first question is, what motivated you to become the world's first dark-skinned activist?
Yes, that's a great question. You know, years later, it's like I do a lot of reflection on why exactly I'm doing what I'm doing, and I always discover something new. The short answer is, in 1998, I was looking for what I call a dark-skinned savior, because I grew up undergoing what I call dark-skinned mental abuse. And I actually wrote an article detailing what that dark-skinned mental abuse entailed. It's a 2014 article that I wrote. It's on Google Plus, and I can send it to anybody that wants it. But basically, I went through a lot of abuse as a dark-skinned person, growing up as a dark-skinned female in my family. I don't even like saying this word because I feel like it's indicative of darkism, but I was the black sheep, for lack of a better word. Sometimes I don't realize, or I don't know if my family realized that this is what they were doing, but there was a particular female in my family that was non-dark skinned, and she got better treatment than me. And as I got older, I started to see this stuff and realize it. And it's just like, it was just something about it. You know, when you're young, you can't really put stuff into words because you're too young to actually articulate it, but you know that something is not right. And so I would see a lot of different acts of favoritism. And then when I got to school, I started to see different people treated differently based on skin tone in schools. And one of the things that I start to reflect on now in my studies regarding darkism is the life chances. And I thank God, because I had to fight really, 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 really hard to make sure I had good life chances. So when I look at it now, I realize that the life chances of darker skinned people, you got to really fight. You got to really fight. And then I look back to my middle school days, for example. There's a study that was put out by Villanova University. I'm trying to think of the scholar's name, Defina, Hannon, and Bruck. That's their last names. So if you guys want to look up that study. And actually, Villanova University, these scholars, they put out a similar study in regards to the rate of dark-skinned women getting more prison time than non-dark-skinned women. But the scholars that I just named, they did a study about the suspension rates in regards to skin tone, and basically proved that the darker you are, the more like, whether it be a male or a female, the darker you are, the more likely you are to get suspended, you know. And there was a New York Times study that actually, as you guys can see, the studies are out there. They're out there. And so for people that say, well, why are you calling yourself a dark-skinned activist? Well, because clearly there is a need for a dark-skinned activist. But I think back on that, and I remember when I was in middle school, I used to get into fights. Oh my God. And because people would be calling me names, and I would just be so upset and hurt about it. And I would get into fights. And I used to think that, coming from an impoverished background, you know, and looking at the current studies, realizing that being suspended from school, for example, can lead to drastic economic hardships for you later on in life. Because if you're getting suspended from school, a lot of students wind up dropping out of school, and then they can't get a job. Then they end up in crime. Then they end up in prison. And then if you dark skinned, you may end up in a situation where you get a longer prison sentence, which there was a Cornell study that proved that darker skinned males are more likely to get the death penalty than light-skinned males. These studies are out there. Okay, so the point is, I look back on that because I did wind up dropping out of school, wind up homeless and on the streets. I did wind up having a very horrific life. And I reflect back on these things and I go, these are all the things that go into the making of me becoming the world's first dark-skinned activist. Trying to improve, to fight against the tide that says, oh, because you're dark and all these things are may happen to you statistically, or more likely to happen to you statistically, you got to fight against this. And so I realized that is what I'm doing. I'm fighting. It's a fight to say, I'm not going to become that. I'm going to become something better. And in my book, which I have right here, there's a term in Darkism, 25 ways dark-skinned people are discriminated against. I talk about this concept of systemic economic darkism. And what that means is that basically dark-skinned people it's a system to where the darker you are, the more likely you are to have a lesser chance on an economic level because you're discriminated against. And those are the things that I wanted to change. And those are some of the things that I've been through in my life already. Like I said, starting from middle school, getting into fights and getting suspended for 10 days and then having to come home to a dysfunctional home life. And then all the stuff that comes along with that. And it's a fight to overcome. And it's a continuous fight for me. And in so doing, I'm helping to fight for other people that are going through the same thing. So in 1998, well, prior to 1998, should I say, I was always obsessed with my skin tone and why I was being treated differently, especially in my family. And this particular non-dark skinned person in my family was getting all this, favoritism and privilege. And it led me on a quest to find someone who was talking about dark skin. No one was talking about dark skin. Let's make that clear. The only person that I later found out was speaking on dark skin was a woman named Colorism in the 1990s. But during this time, nobody, and I would have known because I searched high and low, trust me. So, I even looked to some of the singers at the time because I was a teenager in the 90s. And you can interrupt me if you want to, because I know I'm kind of long-winded sometimes. But Lauryn Hill was one of the people that I loved. She was dark-skinned, beautiful. So I would go see, is she talking about dark skin? She wasn't talking, but she was still beautiful and singing and talented. So that was great. But no one was talking about dark skin. So one day I walked into a store and I saw a magazine with Alec Weck on it. And she's a dark-skinned Sudanese model. And this was in 1997 or 98. It was either at the end of 97 or the beginning of 98. And I bought it. I was an undergraduate student at the time. I bought the magazine. I still had that magazine to this day. And I started doing a little research into who she was because I was intrigued. I could not believe that this woman, that they would put her on the cover of a magazine being as dark as she was, and she didn't have hair on her head. And Black people, I hate to say it, but they were pretty much saying at this time, from the research that I gathered, that she was not the representative of what a beautiful Black woman should look like. They were saying all kinds of negative things about her. And it was very upsetting to me. And so I had an opportunity to participate in the Optimist Oratorical, I'm sorry, it wasn't the Optimist Oratorical Speech Contest. It was a speech contest for a Harambe festival that was going on at St. Pete College at the time. Now, I did participate in the Optimist Oratorical Speech Contest back when I was in middle school, thanks to this beautiful dark-skinned teacher named Maddie Everett. May she rest in peace. And she was one of the people that told me that I was beautiful, and because she saw that I had some issues going on there with self-esteem. And so she entered me into the Optimist Oratorical Speech Contest because she saw that I had a gift to, to talk and speak. So then years later, fast forward to St. Pete College, I entered the contest and I said, you know what? I'm not going to wait for anybody to start talking about dark skin. I'm going to speak on this topic. Now, I had been talking about dark skin to my family members. And there was this one particular family member that she got so tired of me talking about dark skin this, dark skin that she used to kick me out of her house, literally, and say, go. So I had finally found an outlet to talk about it, and I did it. And long story short, that speech gave birth to dark skin activism in 1998. And that same family member was there, the one who said, get out of my house, I'm tired of hearing this dark skin stuff. I had won a $200 prize and took her out to eat, and my son was there, and it was just fantastic. And from that point on, I started speaking on dark skin, and I've been doing it in the community. I've done so much work. I do dark skin counseling. This is way before social media. We do have people talking about it now, but I'm telling you, I would venture to even say that I am the person that got other people to start talking about it, because no one was doing this. No one was doing this. So years later, I've written 5 books and counting on dark skin, 3 plays on dark skin. I have the Dark Skin Activist Tour going on right now, featuring a dark skin woman's revenge. It is a one-woman show where I play 5 different characters. And this is just, it's my life, because it's always been my life, and I'm changing people's lives. Just the other day, a brother contacted me. He works in corporate America, and he said he takes this book with him to work as a source of inspiration, because the things that I'm saying in here affirms to him that it's not in his head.
Right.
He's not crazy.
Now,
so I'm happy to be.
Oh, excuse me.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question. Now, you mentioned the life chances, like how this colorism, darkism affects people's life chances. Can you talk about like the emotional impact that colorism had on you, your experiences as a dark-skinned woman with family and school and all that kind of stuff? Just like bring it home so that people could understand like what kind of situation you experienced growing up as a dark-skinned woman.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I got so many stories. My grandmother, God bless the dead, she did in her own way reconcile with me when she was alive. But when we was growing up, like I said, I have people in my family who are not dark skinned, and they clearly got favoritism and privilege. When it came time to dole out the money, they got the money. When it came time for graduations was there, they got the support. I dropped out of high school. Like I said, I didn't have any support from anybody. I literally had to claw and fight for everything that I have. And no one said, when I got my GED, no one said, pat you on the back and here goes some money to help you out and get started on your way. But I saw that happening with other people in my family. I remember my grandmother, she would even call me ugly. She would, I overheard her say these things. And this one particular person in my family, she had so-called quote unquote good hair. And so because her hair was good and her skin was, I have a family member that likes to let me know, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this, that we have my great grandmother is a full-blooded Indian. That's what she likes to say. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but a lot of times Black people will say that they are mixed with another race. Like I have Indian in my family, because they are not really comfortable with being Black. So this particular person will talk about the fact that because my great grandmother is a full-blooded Indian, we do have certain people in the family that have a better grade of hair, and their skin is a little bit, it's lighter. The features are, you know what I'm saying? So I was constantly reminded that I was not one of them. I did not get those features in terms of the good side of it, or the good part of it. I got the nose, the big nose, but I didn't get the so-called good hair, the long, flowy good hair. And the ones that did get that were rewarded with the like I said, with the money, with the attention. Attention is very important when you're growing up, because you need to be reaffirmed and told you're beautiful. I didn't get any of that. I was pushed to the side, and I understood at an early age, okay, I gotta step to the side because this is my position. It's almost like you know your position and you play it just because you feel the essence of what is going on around you as a child. And so I carried that with me for a long time and trying to break free of that. That's another reason why I started dark skin activism, because I was trying to break free of being told that I was not enough for being dark skinned. You know what I'm saying? Not necessarily them saying because you're dark skinned, but showing me, you're showing a lighter skinned person in the family, or lighter skinned people in the family, favoritism, where you're saying bad stuff about me, and I haven't done anything.
Right.
Bad stuff about me because I'm dark skinned. So it was a very painful experience growing up. I actually distanced myself from my family for a long time because of that, so wow. Yeah, it's a lot.
So let me ask you this, like, why do you think colorism still exists right now? I mean, especially given the fact that we had people like Marcus Garvey come to the Black community to teach Black pride. We've had Elijah Muhammad in the Nation of Islam. We've had the I'm Black and I'm Proud movement, Black is Beautiful. Why do you think that colorism still exists today?
Because we're not dealing with darkism. That's the issue. We're dealing with colorism, and that's the reason why See, and that's the thing. Black people, in essence, when I talked about dark skin discrimination, they did not want me to specifically hone in on dark skin. They wanted me to focus on all Black people. And colorism doesn't do enough for me, because it's a big picture skin tone discriminatory thing that could apply to any skin tone. But darkism is a new paradigm. It's totally different. Darkism focuses specifically on darkism. And if you are eradicating darkism, then you are eradicating colorism, because the dark-skinned people are at the bottom of colorism. And like I said, colorism doesn't have, I've never seen any solutions within colorism. And I've studied extensively the colorism scholarly literature, and there's a lot of it out there. And I haven't found a solution, which is another reason why I became the world's first dark-skinned activist. Because in studying colorism and saying, okay, we've got this body of research that shows, you know, that the lighter a person's skin tone is, the better their life chances are, socioeconomically and politically, etc. But we don't have any real solutions. And we're not getting at the fact of the people that are on the bottom, which is the dark people of the world. When I did my thesis on the dark-skinned people of Sierra Leone, that spoke volumes to me in terms of why is it, and I would ask my professors this all the time, and I never got the question answered, which is another reason why I became the dark-skinned activist, because sometimes you have to be the solution to your own problem. I would ask them, why is it that the darker people, the dark-skinned people of the world, why do they get turned around? For example, the Haitians come over and the Cubans, you know, come over, but the Haitians get turned back and they let the Cubans in. Why is it when we look to Africa, where the dark people are, the darkest people are, why is it one of the poorest places on earth? There's a link between their dark skin and poverty. And then I came up with this term, this book, Darkism. That's the thing. No one was addressing it. So that was a problem for me. And so until we address it head on, the problem of dark skin discrimination, I just get hear it in my head. Black people telling me, oh, we got to focus on all Black people. They told me this all the time. And I'd say, no, we got to deal with the darker skinned people and bringing justice. I got to piggyback off of Dr. Neely Fuller, who I love. He talks about replacing a system of injustice with justice, and he's absolutely right. And I could apply that to, you know, the darkism in terms of what I call global darkism. We have to deal with providing justice for the darkest people of the world, because they're at the bottom. And it reminds me of your body. If your body is sick, your whole entire body may not be sick. It might just be your hand. So why do you need to focus on your face if your face is not sick? You need to take care of your hands, take care of whatever part of your body is sick. So, you know, until we decide to do that, then we're still going to have a problem with darkism, with dark skin discrimination.
So what exactly should be done to address that problem of darkism?
That's a great question. The first thing we have to do, we have to admit that it exists. We have to admit that it exists. The second thing, once we admit that it exists, we have to start educating people. And this is what I'm doing right now when I speak about it constantly. And then what we have to do is start looking for ways to create justice. So for example, and I do this all the time. I love to give this example. I taught K through 12 as a substitute teacher for a long time. Also taught American government at the college level for about 2 years. So there was a time where this third grade little boy, he was really dark skinned. I mean, super dark skinned. He came in the classroom, and apparently, well, not apparently, but I later found out that a Black girl had called him black. Him into a frenzy. He was throwing over desks. I mean, tearing up the classroom. So after we cleared out the classroom and got the children into safety, sat down, talked to the little boy, found out what happened, and come to find out, he went mad, literally, and you know, because a Black girl called him black, and because he was so dark skinned, that was like, you don't do that. You don't do that. This was about 5 years ago. So, working in the school system, I already know what the researchers are talking about when, you know, the darker skinned children are more prone to being suspended. So I knew that that could potentially happen. And so that's the solution right there. Instead of saying, oh, let me write you a referral, send you to the office, to the principal, get you suspended. We weren't going to do that. We sat down and I gathered those kids in that classroom and we had a discussion on Darkism. We had an in-depth discussion on, and I've done this at the risk of losing my job. I mean, the kind of stuff that I would do in schools, talking to these kids directly about colorism, darkism is what I call it. It's the type of stuff that you're supposed to be focused on the lesson plan. But I was willing to put my job and my livelihood on the line if I could save just one child. And so instead of writing him up, which is what a lot of teachers would have done, and there was another teacher in the classroom, and I had to educate her. She was a white teacher. I had to educate her. Hey, we can't send this child to the principal's office, and that's not the answer, because that's what happened to me. I got in trouble a lot for people calling me Blackie and ugly and spot and monkey mouth, and I would end up getting in fights and getting suspended, and then I dropped out of school and all this. We can stop that. And that's what I did. We sat down and we had this long discussion, educated the children, educated the teacher, and we squashed it. And that's another black child saved, a dark-skinned black child saved from getting suspended because someone is discriminating against him because of the color of his skin. These types of things occur in schools every day. So this is
yeah, I hear what you're saying. So you were talking about that experience of that young boy, and as a dark-skinned boy, how would you compare the treatment of dark-skinned boys to the treatment of dark-skinned girls?
Whew, I would say, based on the experience that I've seen, I'm going to give you the experience that I've seen and the experiences, just talk about a little bit of the research that has been conducted. The New York Times, which I alluded to earlier, they did do a study that showed that dark-skinned girls are more likely to get suspended and get in trouble than their non-dark-skinned counterparts. And it's true. There's another study, the one by Villanova as well, Hannon, Defina, and Brooke, those are the last names of the scholars, that also revealed that dark-skinned boys and girls, their study pretty much found, are more likely to get suspended from school than their non-dark-skinned counterparts. So I would say, and based on what I have seen in the school system, I would say that that is true, based on what I have seen. I've also seen, which is very disturbing to me, a lot of dark-skinned children in special education. Now, people may look at this and say, "Well, there's non-dark skin." Well, that is true, but I'm just telling you what I have observed from physically working within the school system for a number of years around these children in various settings. And I've probably been in every school. I probably worked at every school in my county, in the city that I live in. So I've seen this stuff with my own eyes. And special education, they have categories of special education. And what I noticed is that the dark skin, there's a overrepresentation of dark skinned children based on what I've seen in emotionally disturbed type special education courses. So they end up at the schools for the so-called bad kids. There's an I'm not saying that there's not non-dark skinned children, but from what I've observed, and if we are honest, if the people in my city are honest, they know that this is true. And that's disturbing to me, because going back to this question of life chances, that kid could have been me. I didn't end up in a school like that, but I wound up dropping out of school. I wound up being a wayward kid trying to find my way into the world. And these kids, they're growing up, and it's like, what I look at them all the time and go, what is their life gonna be? There was this one little boy, he was really dark skinned. I'll never forget him. And I had just had my baby, and the principal at this school wanted me to be a long-term sub. This was in a black neighborhood where the school was like what they call a DF school. We have a rating system in Florida. A is the highest rated, F is the lowest. And this principal said, "Can you please stay to the end of the school year?" Because their teacher had quit because she couldn't take it anymore, and she just quit. And he was this dark-skinned young man. He was a 5th grader. He's really dark-skinned. And he was supposed to be the baddest kid in there. And the kids wanted me to kick him out and oh, send him here, send him to detention. No, I wouldn't do it. I worked with that kid, and we worked with him, and we worked with him. And by the end of the school, we went to a place called Enterprise Village, and we made sure he got a very good job, because Enterprise Village is a place where children can get jobs based on, like jobs that are not the real type of jobs, but, pretend jobs based on what they could be when they grow up. So I think it was a management position that we gave him where he had to put on a suit and tie. And by the time we finished with him, we let him know that he was somebody special and important. And I could see people would not admit to this, but because he was so dark skinned, people had kind of wrote him off. You understand? Oh, he bad. Just let him go to the bad kids class or detention or timeout. No, you stay here and you work with these kids and you let them know that they are important and that they are somebody. And if you do that, and if you stick with it, you'll see the results. And I saw this young man, and every time he see me, he look at me, how you doing, Miss Strober? Smiles at me because he knows I care. And that means the world to me. That's what we got to do. When we talk about solutions, that is what we got to do.
Right. So in terms of difference in treatment, like how how there's a house, there's an echo. I think there's an echo on your end. Oh, now I can hear it fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So the question was this, like, in terms of how Black men are treated versus how Black women are treated, like dark-skinned Black men and dark-skinned Black women. Like, recently Gilbert Arenas made some disparaging comments about dark-skinned women, and he called out Lupita Nyong'o, who's one of the most beautiful women ever, but he basically suggested that she was ugly because she's dark-skinned. And there's a sentiment in society that's anti-dark-skinned woman. And on the flip side of that, when it comes to dark-skinned men, like a Idris Elba or a Morris Chestnut, people look at them favorably. So do you notice a difference, like in terms of how they are viewed, like in terms of attractiveness for Black men, dark-skinned Black men versus dark-skinned Black women?
Absolutely. So Lauren up there. Two people come to mind.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that's different?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. Two people come to mind. First of all, the great Wallace Thurman, who wrote the book in 1929 called The Blacker the Berry. He's way before his time. There's a quote in the book that goes something like this, that the mother of the main character said in regards to her dark skin. She said something to the effect of, if she had been born a boy, her life would have been easier. Suggesting that it's harder for dark skinned girls because it's a question of beauty, and beauty has historically not been associated with dark skin when we look at the situation of Black people in America. And then there's Dr. Margaret L. Hunter, who, by the way, is a light-skinned female scholar who I respect because she's done a lot of work on colorism. She talks about this idea of social capital for females. So for a female, for example, beauty is their social capital. They can use that social capital, the beauty as the social capital for everything from getting a job to higher education to getting a good husband. It's social capital. And again, light skin, white, non-dark skin, however you want to phrase it, has been historically associated with beauty. So with a man, it's more so about, can this man provide? It's not about this man is dark skinned, he's not going to be able to get a woman. It's not about beauty with the man. It's more about, can this man provide? And it's generally, that would be based on if this man has a certain amount of education, or if this man has a certain amount of hustle in him to where he can go out there and figure out how to make money. So it's about a man's will to be able to be a provider, a good provider. And it's not about beauty or necessarily looks for that man. It's more dependent, like I said, on their education, their intellect, their physical strength, and those kinds of things. But for a woman, it's about beauty. And if you look at it, I look at it like this. I look at it as a beauty hierarchy. And if you are at the bottom of that hierarchy in terms of beauty, and as you go up the hierarchy, the most beautiful women are non-dark skinned, then it's a problem. And this is not just a problem that goes on with African Americans. The same issue in regards to beauty, it's in terms of dark skin, where it's dark skin could be more of an issue for females than males. This problem is in India, in Asia. You know, I call it global darkism, because that's what it is. So I hope I'm answering your question.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. But I'm wondering, like, how society, like, they would view somebody like a Idris Elba or a Morris Chestnut or even Wesley Snipes in his prime. They would view those men, like, aside from their ability to provide or aside from their fame and all that kind of stuff, society tends to view those men, they may view them as attractive or whatever, as sex symbols. But when it comes to women, for whatever reason, you know, darker skinned women don't get that same kind of recognition and praise in the larger society. And I was wondering, like, what would you say to that? Like, what would be your answer to that? Aside from the ability to provide and all that kind of stuff, and the hustle and everything that you mentioned before.
Well, I would say to that, it's because, again, the beauty is associated with lightness, whiteness. And it's that pyramid, that beauty pyramid. If the white women are at the top, and as you go down the ladder, the white women with the blonde hair and the blue eyes, going back to Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye, you know, you go down and you got the dark skinned women at the bottom, then that's why. And historically, since slavery, should I say, dark skin has been associated with being masculine, with manliness. For example, I, as a dark-skinned woman, have been told point blank by people, you look manly. You look trainee-ish. I'm like, really? So my dark skin makes me look like a man. Okay. So yeah, I mean, so dark skin being associated with masculinity, the darkest man then would look the most, based on that logic, the darkest man would look the manliest, the handsomest. And the darkest woman would not be as beautiful, because dark skin is not associated with beauty. It's not a beauty characteristic. It's a manly characteristic. So therefore, dark skinned women are viewed as ugly. And especially if you don't have any hair on your head, that makes it even worse, because, you know, most men, their hair is short, cut like yours, and you couple that with them being dark skinned, that's a manly man, you know, tall, dark, and handsome. What about, I'm tall, I'm dark, I'm about 5'10". So it's like, okay, I'm tall, dark, and ugly. So, I mean, you know, that's, I hope I answered your question, but that's why. Yeah, but
so
Lupita is absolutely gorgeous.
So often, like, you'll have like dark-skinned black men who seem to be the ones that hate dark-skinned the most. Like, they hate dark-skinned women more than other men, like, it seems. Like, here on YouTube, for instance, like, a lot of the prominent personalities here, you know, have basically made an industry on bashing black women and all that kind of stuff. Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think that often you'll have dark-skinned men? Like, even that guy, Gilbert Arenas, he's not, you know, some could say he's a dark-skinned black man. Or even like some of the YouTube personalities, I won't go into their names, but basically they have made an industry out of bashing dark women in particular and black women as a whole. So why do you think that is? Why is that the case?
I think we're easy targets. We're the lowest on the beauty totem pole. I call it the beauty totem pole. We are the lowest. So being the fact that we are the lowest and seen as the most unattractive women, we're the easiest, because they feel like, okay, and that's how, okay, I'm glad you asked that question, because that's exactly how it was when I was in school, going back to my school years. I noticed that it was the dark skin, me as a dark skinned woman, the dark skinned girls would be attacked first in regarding looks, always. And that's because people view dark skinned females as being the ugliest. That's just the way that it's been viewed for like so long. Even, like I said, even going back to my school days, I have experienced this. I have seen this. So for example, you know, we used to call it cracking on. I don't know if you heard of that terminology, but whenever a popular person in school, and I've been at the brunt of this so many times in school I can't even count. That's why I used to end up getting into fights and getting suspended, because at some point you get tired of it, and then people say dark-skinned women are aggressive. Well, we're more picked on, and sometimes it leads us to being that way by no fault of our own. It's bullying. So anyway, when it was time to be cracked on in school, and the popular boys, or a boy that wanted to be popular, if he wanted to get cool points, come for the dark-skinned girl. That's how it was. I was the victim of that. That's how I know. I'm speaking from experience.
And were these dark-skinned boys? Were those dark-skinned boys the ones doing it, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and girls. And girls.
Wow.
Yes, absolutely. And so, we've always been easy targets. And I was the type of child in the beginning, I would not defend myself. I wouldn't say anything. I know I'm very talkative now, but I was an introvert. I would not say, I knew this stuff. I would find other ways to try to escape it. I try to go on this side of the lunchroom and hide, or not even come into the lunchroom, or figure out a way to, but they'll find you. They will come for you. Trust me, I know. And they kept coming. And then I just had to say, hey, this has got to stop some kind of way. So, but that's why. It's like they felt like, okay, people don't value your beauty, so let's talk about you. Let's go in on you. And that's what happens. So, yeah.
Now, I've listened to quite a few of your interviews, and in your interviews, you talk about how you think that men are the solution to the problem of darkism. Can you explain that? Like, why do you think men are the solution? And what can men do? Like, what can somebody like me do with my YouTube channel, for instance, or just in society in general?
Absolutely. That's a great question. From day one, I want to say, ever since I've been doing dark skin activism, I have been primarily talking to men, Black men. Because one of the main reasons, and people have to understand, people start movements primarily based out of their own experiences, and then it spreads to help other people. So because I was being picked on a lot by Black males, I always wanted their acceptance. And I remember wanting the acceptance of this one particular Black male, and when I was in high school, and he was really dark skinned, and he was so cruel to me. Oh my God. And I was just like, oh. So I think that because Black men can be so influential, just going back to my school experience, in terms of how other people would follow up with some of these popular guys and do what they did and listen to them. They were influencing people. If they said, well, dark-skinned women are beautiful, and started praising dark-skinned women, then other people will start to follow suit. So that's why I say, I just believe that Black men are in control of this, because number one, I'm going to be honest, I've always wanted Black men's acceptance. I'm one of those honest Black women out here. I'm not going to jump on bandwagons. I'm going to tell you the truth about why I started doing what I did. I have always wanted the acceptance of Black men. Maybe it's a psychological thing because I didn't get that acceptance in school. I don't know, but that it is what it is. So that's one of the reasons why I say you guys could solve this by simply saying, you're beautiful. I remember Tommy Sotomayor back in 2014, when he invited me onto his show, someone had sent him one of my Facebook posts in 2014 where I said, tell a dark-skinned woman in a respectful manner that she's beautiful. And that was like the post that got him, that made him want me to come onto his show. And because that's what I'm about. Like, that's like there's other facets to this, like the systemic economic ending, the systemic economic darkism. But, the other facet is the relationship facet. And for me, that's really, as I got older, and of course started to, want a boyfriend, and was like, oh my God, why is these guys? So it's like, I got to figure out, what can I do about it? So, it's a deep-seated need to have the acceptance of Black men, which some of Black women disagree with me on, but I'm telling you the truth about how I feel.
I was going to ask you about that. I've listened to a couple of other YouTubers, and they basically have given up talking to Black men. And I was wondering, like, you know, given your experiences, the way people have talked about you, the way they mistreated you and psychologically abused you and damaged you, and given the fact that a lot of them were Black men and boys, why do you continue to hold out hope for the Black man? Why do you continue to still have faith in the Black man? I've listened to your interviews, and you seem to have an optimism despite all that you've been through. You seem to have like hope still, you know, despite everything, for the Black man, and you still believe in Black men. Why is that?
Because I love Black men with a passion. Why not? That's where I came from. My father was a Black man. He was very dark-skinned, and my father is probably the person that saved me from not liking Black men, because he showed me a great example of how a Black man should behave. He wanted to marry my mother. They were about 30 years apart in age. She was 23 and he was 53 when I was conceived. So she thought that he was too old for her at the time. But he still treated her with love and respect. He would always tell her how beautiful she was, no matter how mean she was. He would be like, "You're so beautiful," and he just ignored. And then he got married again, and his wife and then he would tell other Black women they were beautiful. I mean, he was just the most charismatic, respectful, wonderful man. And so I saw that, and I was like, wow, I need to find me. You know, when I grew up subconsciously, I was thinking, I gotta find me somebody that behave like my dad. And so that's why I know that not every Black man behaves, you know, a certain way. Like, there's billions of us on the planet. Why should I? That doesn't make any logical sense. So that's the reason why, like,
I hear you. I mean, yeah, because I was wondering, like, so often here on YouTube, like, you have all these women that basically say that the Black man is no good, you know, the Black man is an abuser. And I was actually watching this video today where somebody was actually saying, you know, that Rashida Strober, they were talking about you, saying that you shouldn't have hope or faith in the Black man, that you need to expand your horizons and get you some other kind of man. And I was just like cracking up, like, there's like a pervasive mentality here on YouTube where, you know, there you have this group of women who want to go their own way, you know, Black women going their own way. That's what they call themselves. You have these swirlers who basically have abandoned hope and they pursue these other non-Black men. So it is very refreshing to hear like a sister still have faith in Black men. You know, that's something that, you know, that I have respect for. You know, despite what you've been through, you understand that you can't judge the entire group based on the actions of a few within the group.
Right. Absolutely.
Or even many, like it may be many, but they don't represent all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I love Black men. What can I say? It is what it is.
So let me ask you this. Why would you interview with somebody like a Tommy Sotomayor, given all the horrible and despicable things that he has said about Black women and dark-skinned women in particular?
Well, because, you know, you have to speak to people that don't agree with you. I mean, I don't have an issue. I taught American national government, and I've debated with people with different political, social, economic views. I'm used to dealing with that. I don't have an issue talking to someone that you got the Democrats and the Republicans and the, you know, you have the independent partiers. I will talk to anyone, anywhere. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, it's an exchange of ideas and views. So, you know, that person needs a chance to be able to espouse their views, and I need to be able to have a chance to espouse mine. And we may agree, we may not agree, but I feel that it's going to be good for the listening audience because they can hear both sides. Right. And become more educated and make an educated decision and hear, you know, all sides. So I don't have an issue speaking to anyone that has a divergent viewpoint than mine at all. Never have had one.
That's a great attitude to have. I mean, it is good to have an exchange of ideas and debate of ideas and all that kind of stuff. Now I want to talk about the thing that really brought you to my attention, and that's Kendrick Lamar. You know, that's how I first found out who you were, and I subscribed to your channel immediately when I found out about this. So you had this brother put out this uplifting song, you know, Complexion, where he's singing about, you know, the praises of Black women of different colors and all that stuff. And it turns out he had a light-skinned fiance. I don't know if she's his wife now. But because of that, you express your outrage, I guess, at his hypocrisy. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like, just can you address that? Like, I'm just wondering, like, I know that there's some people basically said, well, this brother put out a positive, uplifting song. Why are you hating on this brother because of his personal life? So let me hear from you on that.
Right. I'm going to address that, but I want people to know that my editor, shout out to you, he told me to write an essay on that in this book. So the full essay addressing why I made my commentary, but basically it's because I feel it's hypocrisy. Going back to, I believe Kendrick Lamar has either a song or an album, y'all could correct me if I'm wrong, entitled The Black of the Berry.
Right, he has a song by that name. Yeah.
Right, so going back to The Black of the Berry, I always ask the question when I'm doing interviews, it always pops up in my head, has Kendrick Lamar read The Black of the Berry? Which is a book written in 1929 about a dark-skinned young lady who is basically suffering from darkism from her own Black community. And so I don't think, I don't know if he's read this book or not, but it just doesn't seem to me that he's taken the issues that dark-skinned women face seriously. It seems to me that dark-skinned women are being used. And I see that happening now in 2017 because, people, when I started speaking about darkism and dark-skin discrimination, people tried to shut me up. They did not want me to talk about it. Now I see people talking about it. So it's like, okay, it's some hypocrisy going on there. You start talking about it. What is the motive behind this? What is the reason? Why would you just now start talking about dark skin if you didn't even care to talk about it before? So the thing is, I feel that there's a certain level of hypocrisy there. I mean, as an artist, you have a responsibility, as far as I'm concerned, to live what you're speaking about as an artist. That's just my feeling on it. And I feel that you're not being as honest as you're portraying in your music, in your lyrics. And a lot of times artistry comes out of the life experiences of the artist. Dark Skinned Woman's Revenge, that comes from my experience, my lived experience. And I'm just having a hard time just understanding, why is it that you're speaking about dark-skinned women and people were saying, oh, he's got dark-skinned women in the video? Is this some type of marketing ploy? That's what's going on now. I see what people talking about dark-skinned women. Is this because people were resistant to it? They were calling me crazy for talking about dark skin only. This has been going on since like 1998. And now I see people talk like, you're using dark-skinned women. Don't do that. We've already been abused and used, in so many different ways. Now you have this artist that's talking about dark-skinned women in their songs because they think that it'll get them, a bigger audience and get them a win with, Black women. But then in their personal life, a lot of disappointed dark-skinned women going, wait, what's going on here? That's a disappointment. There's so many levels to it. Hypocrisy, you're disappointing your fan base, some of your fan base. It's just, I just find it to be disrespectful. And I found it to be disrespectful at that time. And I do want people to know, since we're talking about it, that post, a lot of people think that I was not trying to gain notoriety off that post. I had no idea that post would go worldwide. And people from all over the world, oh my God. I was like, whoa, I was shocked. Because what happened, I told you I have been counseling dark-skinned people and people of any race that, they may have a dark-skinned person in their family or dealing with. I've been counseling people for years. I was counseling this dark-skinned young lady, and I've been counseling her for about a year. And we've been talking, and it was a regular day. She just came to me and inboxed me on my Facebook and asked me about Kendrick Lamar. And I said something to the effect of, I don't follow his music or something. And she was like, well, go look him up. And I was like, okay. So I went and looked him up, and I saw what I saw, and I said what I said, and I went about my day. And the next day, I was like all over the world, all of the blogs, and I was shocked because I had been giving my commentary that people are now doing this online, but I have been doing this already for years. I told you I've been a dark-skinned activist since 1998. So this was nothing new for me. It was just what I do.
Right.
So it was, that's pretty much the whole story behind that.
So what's your response to, people say, well, you know, complexion is just like any other preference that a person may have. Like they may prefer a tall woman or a shorter woman, a thin woman or a thicker woman, a woman with long hair or a woman with short hair. What's your response to people that try to put skin complexion into that same category?
If preference was just if skin color was just another preference, then explain to me why dark-skinned people, going back to their life chances in the realm of education, economics, jobs, mate selection, all these different indicators of life chances, why is it that dark-skinned people tend to fare the worst in a lot of situations? Why? They would have to explain that portion. You can't just say skin tone is just preference and it's like any other preference and leave out all these other different indicators of the negativity in regards to dark skin tone when we talk about people's everyday lived experience. So that it just doesn't make sense to me in that context, because all things are not equal. If all things were equal, then we could possibly make that argument, but we can't under the circumstances of darkism. So
let me ask you this: like, when you hear about like prominent African American celebrities who decide to either be with lighter skinned women or white women, why do you think that they get an adverse reaction from black women or dark skinned women in particular when they see those kind of situations?
Well, because again, dark-skinned women in particular are considered the least desirable women, and we've been disparaged the most, and we feel like our chances of sometimes getting with a finding a decent black man, it's hard, it's not easy.
Right.
And going back to that pyramid, that beauty pyramid, the higher up the pyramid you are in terms of skin tone, the more likely you are to find a better mate. Studies have proved this. There was one study at Clark Atlanta University. There's a graduate student that did a study on skin tone and women in terms of how skin tone affects life chances, again, relationships being a part of it. And he found that light-skinned women, for example, were more likely to be in relationships than the non-dark-skinned women. You guys can read this study. Taylor Matthews is the person's name. I do believe the dissertation is found online. Clark Atlanta University. Just type in that. These studies are here. That's showing these things. It's not just experiences. It's actual data, that research that is taking place. And so women, we feel in the pinch. Dark-skinned women feel the pinch in terms of, we look around and we see, okay, people are disparaging us. You see the situation with Lupita Nyong'o and Gilbert Arenas is one example where we've been disparaged in the media, and then you turn around in your everyday life and you go, wow, I've got people saying publicly that they don't think that I'm beautiful as a dark-skinned woman, and then you go out here in the world and you try to date, and you have all this baggage, if you will, that's behind all of that. So it makes it harder. It makes it. I've even counseled women that were suicidal because of this. This is a very serious issue. That's another reason why I continue to be the dark skin activist, because people confide in me and they know that I'm not going to pass judgment and go, oh, you're just jealous or you're a hater. It's a serious life issue when it comes, especially for a woman, when it comes down to marriage and dating. It's very serious. So, when you look up and you see that your men are not with a black woman, not with a dark-skinned black woman, and you realize that a lot of our men are in jail, incarcerated, there's a lot of other issues that are at play, and you see all this, all this stuff is just like baggage.
Right.
It sends you almost into a whirlwind of what do I do? And different women have their different ways of dealing with it, but nonetheless, it creates a lot of struggle and baggage and hardship to deal with, especially for the you know, I would even argue women, black women, dark skinned black women that are on the lower socioeconomic level. I would make the argument that it's even harder for them.
So do you have a similar reaction when you see a dark-skinned woman with a light-skinned man or a non-black man?
No, I don't. And I can admit I'm starting to understand the arguments of some black men who have asked me the same question, because here's the thing, I gotta be honest. I was speaking from, remember I told you, I said black men are the ones that have the power to change this. I'm speaking from the perspective of a woman wanting the attention of the black man. So when it comes to seeing the other side, I had to kind of just like, okay, let me look at it from their point of view, because I was so wrapped up into my pain and what I wanted. And it's like, okay, I haven't considered all these things and how the men feel. So, you know, I'm still working on that and make sure I have an understanding and an empathy towards the men in regards to how the men feel as well. So.
Oh, so
Yeah.
Right now it doesn't really bother you to see like a dark-skinned woman, like a Serena Williams with a white man or anything like that. It doesn't, you don't have the same kind of adverse reaction to that situation.
I don't, and I can admit that, but I do wish, should I say, that she, or expected that she would have been with a black man. It is a bit of a shock to me. I mean, I don't know. I mean, because she had her father, he seemed to be a very strong black man who actually worked hard to make sure that they became the women that they became in terms of becoming famous tennis superstars. Like, from what I understand, he was like the person that trained them and who basically put them on the map and who was their coach and all this stuff. So I expected that she would be marry a black man. So it was a shock to me. Yes. So.
Because I've noticed like a lot of women, like you'll hear them like bashing these black athletes or entertainers who date and marry outside the race and all that kind of stuff. But then these same people were doing cartwheels when they heard about Serena Williams, or when they heard about the first black woman on the Bachelorette show and all that kind of stuff. And that black woman was, every picture you see her with, she's with some white guy, hugged up and all googly-eyed over some white guy. And it's just like, I just think that, that reflects a kind of hypocrisy, don't you think? Like to bash one and not the other, or to, not see them both the same, even though I understand you're coming from a completely different perspective as a woman, but it seems like it would be more even-handed and more consistent to have the same position, regardless of if it's a man or a woman. And, I see a double standard with men too. Like you'll see men like, these guys that claim they don't care about a woman dating outside of the race, but they make a big deal about it. They do all these videos about it. But then at the same time, these same men are defending black men when they date outside of the race,
Yeah, it's hypocrisy on both sides. I would agree with that. It's definitely hypocrisy on both sides. Now, I will say this. I think that it's more difficult. I'm not saying this to make an excuse, but I do think it's more difficult for a dark-skinned woman out of all the people that we are speaking about. And when we talk about dating and marriage, I think on the whole, it's more difficult for a dark-skinned black woman, more so even for a dark-skinned man. But with that being said, I do think that it is hypocrisy. I mean, it is a double standard. It is. So.
Yeah, and throughout your interviews, like I hear you talk about that pyramid, the structure in terms of that white woman at the top and all that kind of stuff, and dark-skinned women at the bottom. How do you destroy that pyramid? Like, how do we get rid of it completely so that will never be a factor? Because, here we are like in 2017, like all these years after Jim Crow, all these years after slavery, we had a black president and all that kind of stuff, and we're still struggling with this issue. And I don't want to have a situation where like 100 or 200 years from now, we're still talking about the same issue. So you talked about it before, like some of the things that we can do, but like, how can we shatter that paradigm? I mean, especially given the fact that we live within a predominantly white society with its white media that projects these white values and all that kind of stuff?
By doing exactly what we're doing now. That's the reason why I became the dark-skinned activist, because my goal has always been to equalize the beauty of dark-skinned women and girls. That was like my slogan that I actually wrote down, to equalize the beauty of dark-skinned women and girls. So this is everyone has their own way of doing it. This is my way of doing it. Becoming a dark-skinned activist, speaking about it, writing books about it, doing a play about it, and open up this dialogue. And I've been working hard at it. This is my way of answering that question. I also go into the schools and I speak to the kids. I performed a play for 10th graders and up, and I speak about dark skin being seen as equally beautiful in comparison to other skin colors, because that's really what it has to be. It has to be, dark skin cannot be on the bottom anymore. It cannot be at the bottom of that hierarchy and you have the other skin tones at the top. It has to be equal like this. And in order for that to happen, you got to have the discussion. You have to have a discussion to where people are becoming aware of it. You have to talk about it. And I think that the work that I'm doing has had an impact, because whether people want to admit it or not, the Kendrick Lamar, as much as people disagree with me on that, it spurred, everybody is now talking about it. People are making videos about it, but they were saying that I was crazy, but they're making videos and talking about it. My dark skin activism is having an impact. So
right, I wanted to hear a little bit more about the impact that you're having. Like, you talked about how you counsel individuals. Like, are there some concrete examples of where you made a difference in individuals' lives, like in terms of their perspective? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Just being a listening and opening ear to people. There's a dark-skinned man. I don't want to go too much into a situation, but basically I've been counseling him for about 2 years. Sometimes people need a listening ear. I've learned they don't want you to say, oh, it's not because you're dark-skinned. Hearing. This person has been going through a lot of homelessness, substance abuse, all kinds of stuff. And over the past 2 years, I actually saw a difference in where he was when I first started talking to him to where he is now. And we still speak to this day. And I have donated money, even just been a listening ear. And sometimes when people when people know that you're there to listen to them, that can make all the difference and make them say, I'm gonna get up and change my life. And that's what I saw happen with this particular individual. There's another individual that I worked with in St. Petersburg for years, and I saw this person go through a lot within a particular system that the person is in, and I worked with the person and did as much as I could possibly do to bring advocacy to their situation. And we speak. I just spoke to this person last week, and they're in a better situation to where they're now no longer homeless. They're living in their own place, and they're getting the help that they need. The young lady that I told you about that actually spurred the whole Kendrick Lamar thing, she's doing a whole lot better now. We frequently speak. So it's just the young man that came to my show out in Texas. I actually got a chance to meet him. He's been following me for years, and this is the same person that told me that he's glad that I wrote this book, because he knows that what he was going through is not in his head. That's another thing. They'll tell you, oh, it's all in your head. I've been told that a lot. But this book is an affirmation that it's not in his head, and he carries this book to work with him every day, and he knows that he could contact me and just talk to me. This is the type of difference that I know I'm making, and I'm very happy about that. Also, there was a person that I met with, a man that's been a follower of mine for about 3 years, and we met in person, I want to say about 3 weeks ago, and he told me that as a result of watching my videos, he went back to his dark-skinned wife. I cannot make this stuff up. I wish he would actually come on camera and do this testimonial. I won't say your name, but that is what he told me. We had a 3-hour conversation, and I was shocked. I was like, okay. So, I mean, dark skin, and then of course the little boy. The kids are really what's important to me. When I was in the school system, you wasn't gonna come in the classroom calling a child black and ugly in my presence. We weren't gonna have no dark skin jokes, not with me. Them kid, I didn't play that no bullying with any child. I don't care what color you are, but I was particularly sensitive to anybody saying anything about anybody's negative about anybody's skin tone. And whenever I saw it, we stop it at the door and we sit down and we have a discussion. And you have to do stuff like that because it's been so overlooked. People don't understand. And some African Americans, they don't even want to, they know it exists, but they won't deal with it because they're in school and they got to worry about their job. I put myself on the line. So there's so many different ways that I can say that dark skin activism is making an impact. And, you know, the internet has made it a lot easier because I get so much mail from people all the time that come to me, and I counsel them. I know people think this is strange, but it's not to me. It's what I do. I've been the dark skin activist since '98. This is what I do. So, and I'm very proud of that. I am very, very proud of that. It is my life's work, and I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, I'm really proud of it. I just think that your voice is amazing at this time. Like, you're a strong advocate for, darkism, to address this problem of darkism. It's great to hear your voice, like to hear your opinions, because I think that often what happens is these issues don't get addressed. And I wanted to ask you a couple of other questions before we close out. And the first question I wanted to ask you is, how do you respond to people that say, well, we should just address the larger issue of white supremacy and racism and not get caught up into these color issues, and we should focus on black unity instead of focusing on, dark skin versus light skin and all that kind of stuff?
I don't see it as dark skin versus light skin. That's the thing I keep trying to explain to people. It's a larger issue than light skin, because it's, to me, darkism is not dark skin versus light skin. That's not what it's about. It's about, darkism is about addressing dark skin discrimination, whether it be by, it doesn't matter who it's by, it could be by anybody. So let's address that problem. Let's deal with darkism in terms of going back to for example, the school suspension rate. Let's deal with when a dark-skinned child gets into a fight versus a non-dark-skinned child. Let's make sure the punishments are equal. Let's address the fact of why do we have, as the Villanova study pointed out, why is dark-skinned women getting more prison time than non-dark skinned women? Let's address that. It's certain little things that we could do right now to address the problem in a small way that will address the problem in a big way that can have big results. That's why I said earlier, if your whole body is not sick, then you don't need to, address your whole body. But, if it's just your hand, address the hand, fix the hand. So that's how I see this. I see, okay, the dark-skinned people of the world, that's the part of the human body that's sick. Can we address it? Can we address the disparities in regards to life chances that go on with dark-skinned people? Let's deal with that first. And as we do that, then we'll be forging equality, because this is all about equality. It's about human rights for me, make no mistake about it. At the end of the day, it is about human rights. And even white people, I have white supporters that can understand that. They see that. So, that's what this is. That's what it's not light skin. People that think this is about light skin versus dark skin, you way off the mark. Right. That's not even in my head. So.
Yeah, sometimes people interpret it that way. But I wanted to conclude by asking you, are there some positive examples of the media addressing this problem of darkism? That can be used as a model for social media or for different outlets or whatever that you can think of.
Yeah, actually, I have to say that the media in St. Petersburg has been very good to me. I've been addressed in regards to my work a lot of times in the media. The St. Petersburg Times, it used to be called the St. Petersburg Times, is now known as the Tampa Bay Times. So they've done a lot of stories. I would say at least 3 stories they've covered or more over the years in regards to the work that I'm doing. And I will also want to say the mainstream media actually got wind of my work before this whole Kendrick Lamar thing in social media. The mainstream media actually covered my work first. So, you know, this was like way back in, I want to say 2010, 2009, 10. And then it just started, the story just started getting covered as I would do different things. So, you know, yes, the media has responded to it, and I would hope to see that the media would continue to respond to it in multiple different ways. I would love to be, one of my goals is to be able to come on and speak about instances of darkism in different facets on the media. That's a main goal of mine. It's very important, that is, because that's one of the things that I've already been doing prior to even hitting the internet. So there's so much more to be done. I do know that the media in other countries, like in India and in Europe, they do have stories where they cover dark skin discrimination. I've seen that before. So I mean, it's slowly progressing, but it has to, the envelope has to continuously be pushed in order for it to really get the attention that it needs. So we still have a lot of work to do. So.
And the very last, I know I said that was the last one, but I have one other question. I mean, I know you have just like a limited amount of time, but I wanted to ask you about this whole skin bleaching. And I noticed in some of your interviews, you talked about like one of the important things is to try to stop or ban skin bleaching, like especially in places like Africa and the Caribbean. It's like, why do you think that even is a problem in a place like in the motherland, you know, where we come from as a people, you know, where you have all black everything, where black people control, you know, the government, I guess, on the local level, you know, you have black, you know, black teachers and everything. Like, why would in such an environment you still have this issue of self-hatred? And what can we do to stop this whole skin bleaching phenomenon in the world?
Great question. Colonialism, the impact of colonialism and slavery is the short answer to that. You know, that's just a lot of our people in Africa. They were touched by colonialism and a system that rewarded and privileged Europeans. And, you know, people wanted that same type of privilege. So a lot of the women, just to address your question, I asked someone from the continent, from Ghana, I asked him, I said, why is it that the women are bleaching their skin? And he told me point blank, because they want to find husbands. They believe that the lighter their skin is, the more likely they will be able to find a husband. And that's why they do it. So, and again, skin tone, we talk about skin tone, the lighter your skin is, the more socioeconomic opportunities that you have access to. And that, again, it includes marriage, it includes education, it includes your job. And people want these things. They want to live, they see that as the good life. And so you have people that will do whatever it takes to attain that. And for some, particularly women, when we talk about Africa, that includes bleaching their skin. And it is a huge, huge industry over there in Africa. There are some countries over there, I believe in Nigeria, if I'm not mistaken, that they're banning, putting in policies to ban the skin lightening industry. So, you know, because it's a lot of harmful effects that come along with bleaching your skin. So it's a problem, not just for self-hatred, it's also a problem health-wise. And people are starting to see the significance of that, and they're trying to work to do that. And so I think that what we have to do is start to create partnerships all over the world. Like, for example, Black people partnering up with Black people in Africa and Black people over in the Caribbean and all over the world, and coming together and figuring out what do we need. And that's something that I have been working on. I was actually speaking with a sister in, where is she from? Senegal, a couple of days ago. And I had asked her, I told her I wanted her to come on to, you know, my show and talk about what's going on over there, because she said she found my campaign and then she started talking to me about the skin bleaching. And this is a young sister. She's probably no more than 25. and we conversed about this for a while. And so that's another thing that I'm personally trying to do, is create some type of partnership, so that we, because it's not a situation where one person will be able, I will not be able to ban $1 billion skin lightening industry. You got to work with people, you know, in concert to figure out how to end this. Right. And I would like to see it ended, to be honest with you, all over the world. In India, it's horrible in India. Also in Asia, I do believe that Asia is actually the leader. They're the leaders. It's not even Africa. But we do need to work together all over the world and end it, because it's an industry that's based on debasing the self-esteem of other people based on their color. And why should you make billions of dollars off of that? Right. Why should you even? That doesn't even make any sense. But you got to, in order to end it, you got to get at the hearts and the minds of the people and help them to understand why they should not do this. Because like you said, you know, it's hard to understand why in 2017 we still have this color issue going on. It's something similar to what a friend of mine said to me from Ghana. He has a friend of his that's from Ghana, and the woman was not only bleaching herself. This is recent. This is in 2016. She bleaches herself and her son. So I mean, this is like, it's real. It's a real problem. So, and it's a big problem. And so that's something, like I said, I'm looking to form alliances with people, especially in the parts of the world where it's really prevalent, like over in Africa and the Caribbean. And I actually did form a partnership with a sister over in Trinidad and Tobago. She's doing a documentary and doing a lot of work around skin bleaching in that area of the world. And we did an interview about 2 years ago. It's up on my YouTube channel. And so she's doing work over there. So it's gonna take a lot of people to work to abolish that industry. Like it's not an easy task, but it can be done. And I do believe we are making progress. So
wow. This has been a great interview. I know we got a limited amount of time. I want to thank you for joining this hangout. You know, I truly appreciate it, and I hope you can come back. You know, you provide great information, your inspiration. You know, it's been great. So I understand that you have a tour that you're on. Can you let the people know about your tour? And I know that you're coming to the DC area soon. I look forward to checking you out when you come here to this area. So if you can tell the people about that, tell them about your books, your social media, how they can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. I am on the Dark Skin Activist Extended Tour. I'm always going to be on this tour, just so you guys know. I am supposed to be in DC. I'm supposed to be in DC between June 23rd and July 2nd. I haven't received the theater assignment yet, so I cannot tell you guys where I'm going to be at. But the best way to keep up with me in terms of where I'm going to be at is to go to either my website or to email me. So my website is RashidaStrober.com, aka the Dark Skin Activist. Excuse me, y'all. AKA the darkskinactivist.com, aka the queen of darkskin.com.
And I want to shout out one of my viewers, the Goddess 1965, for giving a $5 donation. I truly appreciate it. And I want to shout out Rashid for you. Shout out to Psycho. Shout out to everybody in the chat room. Unfortunately, because the conversation was so engaging, I wasn't able to focus on the chat room as much. But again, I can't thank you enough for coming on here.
No, thank you. And thank everybody for watching. I love y'all. I love this. I love it. Thank you.
So I'm going to post all your information in the description box once this video uploads. Again, I truly appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you. It was fun. Thank you.
All right. Peace and blessings to each and every one of you.
All right.
Good night.